Second round on the Earth Overshoot Day, and I would like to welcome my colleague Bruno Tobak, who will answer with me questions the students have. And our first question comes from Carolina Venturini for Bruno. Please,
Hello.
Carolina.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate your time. So my question is, how can you justify rolling back transparency and accountability when the climate crisis demands urgent action?
Well, I think you cannot justify it. I think it is a completely wrong idea to impose some norms and ambitions at the one hand, and on the other hand, then say we are not going to verify them, we're not going to control them. On the second thing, I think we also put European companies at a disadvantage because a lot of the European companies are leaders in environmentally friendly production, in clean production, in decarbonizing. If we stop imposing reporting of those social norms and environmental norms from companies importing into Europe, then we're basically saying price is the only criterion, and we all know who we're going to buy from then, and it's not going to be a European company. So I think it's a completely wrong idea, and I hope that we can hold back and even roll back the rollback as soon as possible. But that kind of depends on voters.
Thank you very much. And our second question comes from India. And it is Soumya, sorry for pronouncing the name, Soumya Shah, who will ask the question to you, Bruno.
Hi, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
You are
we can hear
me.
you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members. I'm Soumya Shah, and I'm representing Climate Academy India on behalf of my school, Adani International. My question to you will be that will you be able to commit to reversing these rollbacks and ensuring that fast fashion brands are held accountable for their environmental and social impacts? And I'm actually very curious to hear more about this, as fast fashion and fashion trends have accelerated their way to the landfills.
I think that's a very good question. Thank you for that. There is indeed a bit of a problem in not being able to control enough of what is coming into the European Union through direct online sales, and in many cases that is fast fashion. We're even seeing a trend now where fast fashion is getting more and more even in the shopping streets actually in Europe, and we find that hundreds and thousands of tons of clothing is being disposed of literally every day and going to landfill. So one of the ways that we could try to tackle it, and we are going to try to tackle it, I think, is in the Circular Economy Act coming up, where producer responsibility for products that we already have for a number of things such as electronic products and electronic waste and batteries, we could extend that to clothing and make clothing sales platforms responsible for afterwards paying a contribution to dispose of the products, which should ideally encourage them to make the products less disposable. You can you can make a grading in that, but I think it's a very important problem that we really absolutely need to tackle.
Thank you very much. And now we will turn to Omori Chauve, who has some questions for me.
Yes. Thank you. So my first question will cover pesticides, but just to give a little bit of context, as you know, shortly after the Green Deal was concluded, some member states expressed concerns about the potential negative impacts that pesticide reduction could have on crop yields and food security. So the reaction of the EU was to propose a series of simplifications that aimed at relieving the administrative burden farmers and agribusinesses faced. So my question is, how are those simplifications aligning with the Green Deal commitments?
Thank you very much for this important question. And indeed, in the last legislation period, we had many legislations on the European Green Deal. We did up to 3,500 pages of laws, so a lot of laws. And now there is a call for simplification. And first of all, I'm absolutely in favor of cutting red tape. There's no question about it. And I know that especially farmers have a big burden on doing a lot of bureaucratic things, and they would like to spend more time on their fields instead of being in the office filling out papers. But for me, there's a clear, let's say, there must be a clear way. We need to cut red tape, but we should never deregulate, because this would not help any of us, not the farmers, not the industry, and not the consumers. You were talking about pesticides. I mean, in order to have healthy soils, to have clean water, to have clean air, to protect our health, we need less pesticides, and we absolutely need farmers to help them to reduce these pesticides. There is not the right way would not be a deregulation here, but instead we need clear rules who protect our environment, who help farmers, and this is the way we should go. So yes, cut red tape, but please not on the environmental costs or on the costs of our biodiversity.
Thank you. I think I have another question.
Yes.
How would you respond to concern that this simplification represent a sort of step back from EU's health and environmental protection?
Yes. For me, I'm an ecologist, so for me it's a clear step back. If the laws that we decided in the last legislation would now just say, no, we don't need them anymore, they're too complicated, because it does not help us. It will not help us to become resilient. We need to be independent from fossil fuels. We need to get clean water, clean air, to have healthy soils. At the moment in Europe, 60% of our soils are in a very bad conditions. And the first ones to suffer from it are the farmers and the consumers, of course. So we need the European Green Deal. We need the measures of the European Green Deal, but we must help people to come there. We had, because you were talking in the first question about pesticides, we had in the last legislation a very good proposal reducing pesticides, not to use them as the first resort, but as the last resort, because there are alternatives. And I think we should get there, and we should stop thinking that doing something for the environment or doing something for nature is bad for our competitiveness. Exactly the opposite is the case. In order to become resilient, we need a healthy planet, and that is why we should cut red tape and go on with protection, nature and health.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Now we will turn to Nolan Caparros, who has a question for Bruno.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, thank you all for this opportunity, for listening to us. So my question for you is that as the EU seeks to secure its supply chains and energy security, how does the European Parliament intend to ensure that its maritime transport strategy remains fully aligned with the Green Deal's climate and biodiversity objectives?
Well, I think it's a very good question, but first of all, I'd say that if you look at what is happening in the whole fuel supply chain right now, all across the world, because of the events in the Gulf of in the Strait of Hormuz, I think that also for competitiveness, whether it is for road transport or for shipping or for aviation, independence from fossil fuels and moving away from fossil fuels as much as we possibly can is essential, and becoming more and more essential by the day. It is, of course, more technically difficult when you look at shipping and aviation. For road transport, it is pretty easy. Everybody knows that electrical vehicles are the way forward. Even the producers know it. And the ones that are smart enough to get on board with that will exist, and the ones that don't will not exist anymore, sadly. For shipping, of course, it is more difficult for two reasons. First, technically, it's not always simple. We can, for example, and we are doing that in many European ports, going towards electrification of the shore power needs. So when a ship is in port, it still needs energy, it still needs to produce its own electricity. If you can plug it in, literally, it's a lot more clean and a lot more energy efficient than when you have to keep the ship's engines running. It is technically possible to run ships on greener fuels, but the problem, of course, is that European Union has its own ETS system now that will come into force for shipping. What we would have preferred is that we would have an international system for emission trading whereby ship owners are responsible and pay a fee based on how polluting their ship is. We tried that last year in the IMO meeting in London. There was an agreement, but that was finally voted down by the United States and Saudi Arabia. Not by accident, of course, countries that produce and sell oil and gas and have a completely different interest. But I do think that for European competitiveness, it is essential that we move forward in it. But it becomes more difficult in a sector such as aviation and shipping, where a lot of cross-border and out of our continent movements are going on. And so a ship that comes into the European ports and doesn't refuel, for example, it is of course a lot more difficult and it becomes technically more complicated. But we should really, really move forward with that.
Thank you so much, Bruno. That concludes our second round. Thank you very much for being here and for asking these questions.
Thank you.